Well, welcome to the next episode of the Impreza build. Right now, it's all hands on deck. As you can see, we've got Clinton grinding away at the car over here, Corey working on all of the suspension, transferring stuff over here, and myself in this little station with the engine. I'm gonna start tearing this down in preparation for our hybrid build. We've got a very busy episode. We're gonna try and get everything all done within the 15 to 17 minutes you guys are sticking around for this. So I hope you enjoy this one. There's a lot of changes coming your way. Stay tuned. I've got this torn down to the short block. The only thing that really remains, besides water pump, is the oil pan. And I left that on there for a reason. We're gonna replace it because it's pretty crusty. But before we do that, we're gonna need to mock up some parts on it. So you can see on my left is all the single overhead components that came off the engine. To my right, it's the 2.5 components that I got from the junkyard. The heads, the manifold, intake and exhaust, and then the things that we're gonna be adapting onto it, like the turbo right there, our GrimmSpeed intercooler, and a bunch of stuff that's gonna go along with it. So that's the next phase, is gonna be putting this together and seeing if it all fits and what sort of modifications we're gonna have to do to make this work. While I've got both heads off, I wanna show you a little bit of a difference. So as you can see, this is the single overhead that came off the engine. The valve cover's still on it, but below there is just one cam in here. You'll get to see it a little bit later. And you can see the size of the valves. They're really small in comparison to the new head that we're gonna put on, which is this dual overhead, 2 cams in here. That's why there's 2 cam gears on the outside. And then on the inside, much larger valves, which means this head is gonna flow better than this.
Nice.
It's also gonna lower compression in our 2.2 build, which is gonna be more preferable for that turbo on low boost. Dual, single. Corey, what's the latest on the subframe swap?
Working on transferring everything over from the 2.5 RS front end that you got.
That subframe.
That obviously wouldn't clear enough pipe, so we have a cross member from a, what is it, probably an 0203 WRX, some bug eye, that does have the clearance for the up pipe, but we are running into some stuff. The sway bar obviously are different diameters, even with this white line sway bar. We might be able to make it work with some custom bushings. And then the control arms we're gonna have to shim as well, since the mount is wider than the old control arm. So
cool. I mean, it's not that far removed considering we're talking about a non-turbo 97 and a turbo 02 plus. So those little changes that we have to make aren't that major so far. Fingers crossed that we don't run into anything else. With these 2.5 heads on the engine, I can now mock up the exhaust manifold, which is a 3-piece system. It's got 2 collectors and a cross pipe. And these are just pieces I had laying around, so I wasn't exactly sure if they were gonna work or not. And it looks like, although it matches up pretty well, there's gonna be a really big gap here. I'm guessing the two collectors are from different turbo engines. So to solve that problem, I found the OEM exhaust manifold out of our 2020 STI, which is using the GrimmSpeed header, which I can't use because it contacts the oil pan, but I can salvage the OEM one to use it on this setup, and then I'm able to run the OEM location up pipe and such. So what I'm gonna do is pull the heat shielding off of this one and see exactly what type of fitment issues we're gonna have. Since the exhaust manifold went on so nicely, I decided to start mocking up all the rest of the turbo components, and it's starting to look like a real engine, albeit kind of a Frankenstein engine, because we've got a lot of different components here. We've got the block out of a 97 Impreza, we've got the heads out of a 98 Outback, those 2020 STI exhaust manifold components, and some aftermarket GrimmSpeed pieces, the cross pipe here, the up pipe here now, and then of course the TD04 turbo from a 2002 WRX. So really it's all coming together to be the build that I was imagining, a lot of different pieces fitting together like Legos. That's one of the beauties about Subarus, is you can get a lot of stuff to fit.
That's what she said. Mwah!
Now there are little issues. We've got clearance issues here, and I suspect once we get the intake manifold on and try and deal with the turbo inlet situation, we'll probably run into a lot more of those, but I am happy with what we've got here so far. I've been tearing apart the manifold that's gonna go on here, again, just to mock it up. It looks like it's fitting pretty well. I think I'm gonna bolt it down and then try and fit the intercooler, see how that's gonna go around the turbo. But I do have high hopes considering everything's fitting into the stock location. The rest of the guys joined me and they are working at their stations. Corey on all the suspension stuff. That subframe, the turbo version is on, and he's just putting it all together, making sure it fits. There's a couple little snags, but nothing that we can't overcome. And then Owen over here is tearing apart the bodywork, getting the panels off so that we can put patch panels on here. As you can see, we're missing a whole lot of stuff. So he's gonna have to cut those out of cardboard and then basically bend the metal, have our welders patch this up. I've got a feeling a lot of people are gonna be upset at us because we are fortunate enough that this large bolt here that gives 99.9% of people trouble is not doing that for us. Allegedly, so see if you can pull it out.
Give it a tug.
Excalibur's type scenario.
Yeah. Look at that. The problem with this bolt is usually it sits between two bushings right here on the links, and because they have metal inserts, they corrode onto the bolt, and then it basically fuses into one piece. So 9 out of 10 times you gotta cut this out. Ours came out just fine, probably thanks to this being a southern underside of Impreza. So fortunate there. We just got our tires delivered in time for the snow. They are Blizzak WS 90s, which are a super popular tire for Subarus, in a 195 60/16 size. So a little bit narrow and a little bit taller than some of the standard sizing. They're gonna fit on the Impreza really well. Once we got those in, we gotta mount them on the rims, and before we do that, we gotta hit them with a little GrimmSpeed Gold, modeled after the 04 OEM BBS wheels. It's gonna look awesome. I'm gonna get to that while these guys are working on the underbody. Here's the result of the wheel painting so far. They look pretty good. I just put one single coat on. I'm gonna do another one and then a coat of clear over the top. But the color is awesome. BBS Gold is a standard. It's gonna look great on these BD Blizzaks. So I'm happy we went with that aesthetic for these. The other thing that I want to check in on is these guys grinding away at the rust on the underside of the car. How's this going?
We're doing what us Minnesotans do best, and that's figuring out how to cover rust.
Yeah, surprisingly enough, this isn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. I thought we were just going to be able to go right through the body on that. Like that.
There's some spots, yeah.
We knew it was going to be the worst here, but the body itself isn't so bad. So we're either going to grind down the metal or probably patch panel these.
Yeah, probably cut it out. And since it's all going to be covered by an over, we're less concerned about the look. So probably cut, you know, make it nice and easy. Again, kind of going for that budget. Not feel, but we're not going to spend $5,000 doing body work. So
exactly, $5,000 is what we're going to spend for the entire car if we stick to budget. So we do have to keep it pretty cheap. But so far, so good on this stuff. It's not as bad as I thought it was going to be, despite all that. Because we've got so much going on right now, I think this episode is going to turn into a two-parter, so I'm going to call this part one. But before we end it, I want to show you where we're at with the engine, because I did make some changes over the last few days. You may notice that the manifold on this is totally different. This is the old manifold that we were using from the 97. Then we had a 98 manifold that we're going to put that matched those heads. The problem was there was a lot of issues with clearancing the turbo. So back here, there was a turbo that's never supposed to be there, and with the other manifolds, we had the air idle control system, we had the PCV, we had basically everything jammed in one place. I was lucky enough to find a JDM version 4 WRX manifold, that's the one you're looking at, and this had a turbo from factory, which means it has clearance for a standard turbo inlet. We were able to put all of that together a lot nicer. The air idle control is over here now, the PCV is sort of off to the side, giving all the proper clearance that we're going to need to attach this to the top mount. So more or less, things are going really well with the engine. You can see it's assembled. Now it's all the small stuff, getting the injectors to fit, lining up all these hoses, making sure that we have the right connections. And that's going to take a little bit of time. After I'm confident that we have everything in place, I'm going to tear it apart. I've got to send the heads out to get planed, and then basically we're going to start assembling. I think that's going to be part 2 of this episode. So please stay tuned for that one. Like, subscribe to our page. We really appreciate you guys watching the series, and we hope you're getting as excited as we are to finish this build.